you had already been established as a PT now. Do you have your own practice, or you kind of just go and
I work at a clinic.
You work at a clinic? Cool.
Yeah.
So I don't know how hard it is to get your doctorate in physical therapy. I know a lot of doctors. I know a lot of physical therapists that been through it all. What is harder in your opinion? What was the most difficult, getting your black belt or getting your doctorate?
It's funny. I was thinking about that. Even though like most people would say that getting the doctorate in physical therapy was more difficult, I would honestly say that being, the black belt in jiu-jitsu was harder just because it took me way longer.
Mm-hmm.
It was about 13 years to get my black belt. And then you have to think about like all the people when they do jiu-jitsu, like they're dealing with injuries. Some people, I'm sure that, and there's different ways that people get graded for black belt. Like there's some people that they say everyone should be a black belt. So they look at the person, that 70-year-old person still gets their black belt. Some people get judged solely based on how well they roll. Some people are based on how well they can teach. You know what I mean? So it's like not everyone's going to get their black belt. And I think that's what makes it hard, is because everyone has these different criteria. It just matters who your instructor is and what they think. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense.
There's some guys that like they won't promote you if you don't put a gi on. So like there's all these fighters that are like killers.
Mm-hmm.
They don't put the gi on, and like they're not going to get their black belt.
I know a lot of high-level UFC guys that are like blue belts right now, and they're in American Top Team right now. So I didn't get I had received my blue belt by Dean Thomas. Probably I was like 22 years old, and I was a pro. So I was already a pro MMA fighter by then. Turned pro at 20 years old, and I wasn't in the gi. I wasn't, really training that much in the gi because of fighting in general.
Yeah.
And I didn't get my purple belt till just recently, and I'm 31 years old.
Yeah.
So again, I stopped training in the gi for a long time, especially after, I retired from MMA, just because of the fact that the concussions, and we could talk a little bit more about that. I definitely want to dive deep into that. But yeah, you're right about the injuries, man. I just suffered an ACL tear, rolling. So now it's kind of set me back a little bit. Obviously, we're dealing with the pandemic here. So again, now we're out of the gym. But that's interesting, man, because a lot of people, I think, would go the opposite way and say that their doctorate was a little bit harder. But it is really dose dependent. It depends on the person, I guess, right?
Yeah. I think another thing with the doctorate, the reason why I feel like it wasn't as hard is because it was like pretty clear. It's like you do this, you pass this class, you do this. So it was like a very clear path.
Mm-hmm.
I just had to like, like the materials given to me, I just study it and show that I know it,
Yeah.
So like, I think that's why I felt like that was a little bit easier. I also think that like the reason why jiu-jitsu is probably harder for me is I'm not a natural motor learner. Like if you saw me when I started jiu-jitsu, you'd be shocked at like what I can do now.
Yeah.
I was that guy who you say like raise your right foot and I'd raise my hand. Like I was this skinny, slow, unathletic kid. Like I'm not a good motor learner. So for me, it people think that I learn quickly now. It's like, no, I've just been doing this for a while. Like if like a lot of these people that start now should be way better than where I am at this point.
Yeah. And it kind of goes back to, in my opinion, like your motor learning skills from a young age. And that's why I believe that at that young age, you need to develop a base of general qualities of movement, and I see a lot of kids nowadays and a lot of fighters grown that really don't know how to move well. They just know how to move specific to the sport. And that's because of the fact that they don't get that wide range of quality movement. I think that everyone should learn how to run, crawl, jump in all different ways and all different planes of motion before they get into a specified sport. But in the US, it's not like that. They throw a helmet at the kid and then that's it for the entire, their entire youth. And they go into college and either they get burnt out, they get injured, or they just get worse. So, but
I agree with that 100%. It was actually funny. So when I was training in LA, my wrestling coach was Vladimir Matyshenko. So he's a legend. I remember talking to him because he was like a Soviet national wrestling champion. I'm like, so what did they have you do? Because essentially he's a little kid and his job was just to wrestle. I'm like, did they have you do kettlebells or weights? Were you doing this? And he's like, they play basketball. And I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, what essentially it was exactly what you said is like they didn't just wrestle all the time. Like they would go like play basketball, they would play soccer, they would do a little bit of everything. You know what I mean? That's kind of like the way that like he explained it to me is like they weren't only, even though his job was to wrestle, they didn't burn him out. You know, I think I don't know when he retired, but he was definitely, I'm pretty sure it was early 40s when he retired. So he had a pretty long career too.
Yeah, and I know, like I study a lot of the Soviet texts, and they had a set schedule of like, okay, at 7 to 10 years old, they would just do just regular play. They would go around the gym, maybe doing some, gymnastic style work and even contemporary dance, like things like that. And then once they found out what was going to match their qualities from a movement standpoint or just from a structural standpoint, that's when they were like, okay, you're a boxer, you're a wrestler. And then it went from there. But that's interesting to see that and you hear that.